You know, I do this little Rorschach video test every time, and I love it because I'm just fascinated. I did this for the Arizona Librarians Association, which I love the irony of me teaching librarians about storytelling. And one of the ladies in there said, well, it's kids chasing butterflies. I'd never heard that one before. Another time I was at my office and we had a small gathering, and I asked this lady, and she looked up and she goes, well, it's obviously Romeo and Juliet. You all saw Romeo and Juliet, right? And she looked around the room, and the rest of the table was like, no, didn't see Romeo and Juliet. So I asked the guy next to her, I said, what did you see? And he said, I saw a sperm trying to impregnate an egg. Yeah. So I recounted that story to our creative director, Luis, and he goes, oh, great, your little Rorschach video took him from Shakespeare to Porky's all in one fell swoop. But isn't it a really powerful way that really what you saw up there was nothing? You saw data. There were no faces, there was no music, there was no audio, yet you can ascribe a gender to things going on. And sure, it was edited to suggest things, but did you see how your brain had to make up a story to create meaning out of what was going on? It was literally sitting there saying, okay, this has to mean something, so I've got to create this meaning. So let me ask you, when was the last time you did a PowerPoint presentation filled with data, stats, facts, and bullet points? Do you think that told the story that you really wanted your audiences to take away from that presentation? Chances are it didn't, because they're making up this story, especially if they don't understand what you're talking about, if you're confusing them. Do you think your listicles, without a story attached to it to get them into it, do you think anybody cares? Do you think they remember? Kathy, do you? But we all do it. We go back to this idea of content as king. Let's create a bunch of content. I said, no, let's create a bunch of great stories that demonstrate events. And the reason why is story is literally as important to our brain for survival as oxygen is to our lungs. It's that simple. And you know who really knew this? Joseph Campbell. 17 Steps of the Hero's Journey. That's when I said, aha, we can use this. We can humanize our brands. And it's when we created our version of the story cycle that we're going to go through here now and use it on you so that you can start using this same process for your own personal brand, for your clients' brands. You can use this process for the stories that you create. You can use this process, and your homework assignment when you leave here is to make a diary of everything you experience in this new and special world of social media marketing world, and then write a story based on this structure afterwards and use it for your story marketing. So I saw this. We started bringing it back to our clients, and they were a little reluctant at first, but we had amazing success with it. We launched this little sort of insignificant water conservation campaign in the city of Mesa, following this basic construct of don't tell me to save water, show me how. That's what their consumers were telling them. So we created this simple little campaign called the Water Use It Wisely campaign, and it grew astronomically from there. Next thing we know, City of Phoenix was on board. The state of Arizona was on board. People around the country started saying this and say, we love this messaging around water conservation. How can we be a part of it? We ended up selling and licensing this campaign to over 400 private and public entities simply because we didn't tell people to save water. In story, we showed them how. We made them a part of this journey by showing them fun and interesting and surprising ways to save water that they could do in their lives. We told them there are a number of ways to save water, but they all started with you. They placed the consumer at the center of the story. This grew. Home Depot took it and ran with it. Lowe's then came up and ran with it. We had case studies written about it. And believe me, I did not think any of this stuff was going to happen. But it underscored to me the power of story. This campaign is still going strong today. And it's all because we got away from talking about the features and functions of what the brand stood for and demonstrated what the brand makes happen in people's lives, and then invited them in and made them a part of the story. So we're like, wow, this stuff might actually work. Then we used it for Clinica Adelante, a 33-year-old community health center. They redid their complete brand story into Adelante Healthcare. They launched it in 2010, grew by 300%, to the point now that Aveen Tafoya, the CEO of Adelante Healthcare, does no advertising, does no marketing, does no public relations, because she can't handle any more patients. They've just opened their 10th clinic. When we started working with them on their story, they had 3. I mean, it was just starting to totally blow me away of what we were doing with it. A lot of work we did with Goodwill of Central Arizona. They grew by 400% when they stopped looking at their brand as they typically looked at the brand, and they started enacting storytelling within it. 400% growth. Took them from 24 stores to over 65 stores. Coca-Cola, got a chance to work with them on an internal initiative about how to get their truck drivers, their fleets, to drive more eco-consciously. So you imagine what we're up against there. You're going into some dude's cab, basically, and saying, I'm going to tell you how to drive. Well, we had to just completely invert the story and tell the story from their standpoint. We launched this in 2010 with Coca-Cola. They doubled the savings in just the first 3 months on their eco-driving program for what they expected to happen, because we didn't tell these drivers what to do. We invited them into the story and made the story their story, using this fundamental structure of the hero's journey, what I was learning in Hollywood. ASU then came calling and said, can you write a curriculum around this, which I'd never done before. One thing I've learned in studying Joseph Campbell, he says, when you follow your bliss, doors will open where there were only walls before. Well, my bliss was truly like, wow, how does this story thing work, and how can we really impact leaders and communicators around the world by helping them do a better job of communicating? So then this shows up, and I write this curriculum, and I'm now very proud to say we are in our fourth cohort of Executive Master for Sustainability Leadership, working with executives from around the world with big companies like Beyer Pharmaceutical, Cummins Diesel, Philips out in Eindhoven, and other places. So I just had no idea how powerful this was until you actually then see it in action. So you all have your little storytelling book right there. What's my story? Are you ready to give this a go on your own story? Any questions before we dive in?